Live, finally. The Barbecue Pit MMA coming to you live to discuss XMMA 4 Black Magic at the Fillmore in New Orleans, Louisiana. No UFC this weekend, so we are doing our favorite, I wouldn't call them a local promotion, but our favorite non-Bellator PFL UFC promotion, XMMA 4. Headlining by John Dodson taking on Francisco Rivera Jr. When you hear John Dodson, you think, oh, he's going to be the older guy in the fight. No, Francisco Rivera Jr. is 40 years old coming into this fight. John Dodson, 21-13, 1-4 in his last 5 fights. Lost his XMMA debut at XMMA 3 with a decision loss to Cody Gibson. He's got 12 wins by knockout, 10 wins by decision. He's never been finished his professional career, and he's 5'3" with a 66-inch reach. He's going up against Rivera, who is 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. So big size advantage for Francisco Rivera. Rivera is 3-1 since his release from the UFC in 2016. He took about, I'd say, 5 years off after his release from the UFC, came back, and his most recent fight after that was not the most recent fight, but his first fight back after his UFC release was a knockout win over Ryan Lilly at XMMA 1, January 2021. He lost his most recent fight by knockout to David Martinez in May. But like I said, he's 3-1 since that 2016 fight. So he's had 4 fights in the span of January 2021 to right now. He's 3-1 at that time. He's fought one of those was the XMMA, and then he fought for he beat David Martinez, or he lost to David Martinez in May. That was a part of some kind of a tournament or something like that, where he fought 3 times. He won twice against Nolan Hernandez and then Adam Martinez, and then he lost to David Martinez in, I guess, what would have been a final that night or something like that. He's 14-8 with 10 knockout wins and 4 by decision. John Dodson normally comes in undersized pretty much to all of his UFC fights, and then all of the fights since then. So I don't think the undersize is going to play a big role. I think the 1-4 in his last 5 fights is more of a concern to me for Dodson. Rivera, 40 years old, he did take a 5-year layoff, and I know 4 fights after a 5-year layoff would seem like, oh, he's back, no big deal, but 3 of those 4 fights happened in the same night, which takes a lot out of you. So, I really don't know which way to spin on this main event. It's going to be a good one. I think there are other fights on this card that I would have chose if I was XMMA to kind of like, showcase like young talent. I would have rather put maybe the Jared Gooden fight, Jared Gooden, Chris Melander fight as the main event over John Dodson, Francisco Rivera. But I understand why they did. Both of these gentlemen, veterans of mixed martial arts, both UFC veterans. So, yeah, John Dodson's probably like the biggest name on the card coming from the UFC, but I'd like to see a promotion like XMMA, bring the newcomers up and kind of showcase talent through the newcomers instead of putting the veterans top of the bill. Co-main event, Kyle Stewart versus Zach Ottawa. Another 2 guys used to fight in the UFC. Stewart, 14-5, 3-2 since he got released from the UFC. His only 2 losses were against Chris Curtis and Nishan Burrell. He's only had 2 fights in the UFC, lost both of those to Chance Rencounter and Eric Coach. He's got 7 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. He's the 7th ranked middleweight in the United States, and he's got a 1-inch height and a 4-inch reach advantage over Zach Otto, who is 4-4. He went 4-4 in the UFC and now went 3-0 since he was released from the UFC. Zach Otto is a beast on the ground. I think he's like a black belt or a brown belt or some shit like that in jiu-jitsu. He is 20-7 with 12 wins by submission. 4 out of 7 of his losses, though, via knockout. He's got 3 most recent wins was a submission over Clarence Jordan. Clarence Jordan was 11-5-1 at the time. A decision win over Jerome Hatch, who was 25-15 at the time of their fight, and then a submission win over Derek Smith, who was 10-7 at the time of their fight. So I think that he went from fighting UFC caliber guys, and he went 4-4 in the UFC. That's pretty good. And then he came out of the UFC and he looks really good. He's 3-0. That looks very impressive, but he's not fighting guys that are anywhere close to UFC caliber type fighters. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does against a guy like Kyle Stewart, who comes from the UFC as well. He's fought top guys, and he is also on a little bit of a streak since leaving the UFC. Again, no pick here. I'm only picking, I got to be honest, man, I'm only going to throw out picks for guys that I feel it's somewhat of a, not nostalgic, but like a bias towards, like the guys that I like personally that I've spoken to in the MMA world, and that have, who I've taken a liking to their fighting style or something like that. John Howard, one of those guys, versus Ange Lusa. Lusa is coming into this fight with a 3-inch height, 2-inch reach advantage over Howard. He is 7-2 with 5 wins via knockout and 1 by submission. He's never been finished in his professional career, and he is 1-2 in his last 3 fights, losing his most recent fight via decision to Jack Della Maddalena on Dalen White's Contender Series in 2021. He's ranked 130 at welterweight in the United States, and he's going up against a veteran in John Howard, who's 29, 18-1. He's 39 years old. He's currently on a 2-fight losing streak right now, losing decisions to Tyler Ray and Ramazan Kurmagomedov. He went 4-3 in his first stint in the UFC. Got released, came back, then went 3-4 in his second stint. That was 2014-ish. He's 12-12 by decision. He's got career wins over guys like Ray Cooper, Uriah Hall, and Dennis Hallman. So, I know out of 49 fights, those are the 3 biggest names, but those are 3 big names. Ray Cooper has won the PFL tournament twice. He's one of the better veterans of the sport. Uriah Hall's still in the UFC. He's been in the UFC since the time he fought John Howard. So, a mainstay in the UFC. And then Dennis Hallman is just a guy that was probably, in his prime when John Howard was fighting him. So I guess that's just what sticks out to me as far as impressiveness. Ramzan Kurmagomedov is also no joke. I think he fought him in the PFL. Although he lost that fight, that kid is no joke. So, John Howard, powerful guy, 12-12 by decision. So a decision goes, and it can go either way. But I like his striking, and I think Lusa is definitely going to try to strike with him. So excited to see that one. Of course, like I told you, I'm going to pick the guys I like, John Howard in that one. Curtis Melander versus Jared Gooden is a hard one. I like both of these guys, but I'm going to lean towards Gooden on this one. I'm going to tell you why. He's 19-7. He's 1-0 since his release from the UFC, won a decision over Aaron Highball at Icon FC 1 in January. He went 1-3 in the UFC. He knocked out Nicholas Stolze, and then he lost to Alan Jouban by decision, Bakhtar Nurmagomedov via decision, and then Randy Brown via decision, which those 2 losses at the end, can't hate on the guy for, man. I mean, those are Nurmagomedov and Randy Brown are 2 tough guys in that division in the UFC. And then the Alan Jouban fight, although I think that was a very winnable fight for Jared Gooden. Alan Jouban is a great counter striker, and that plays directly against what Gooden is good at, which is pressing the fight and trying to control the pace of the fight. He's only been finished once in his professional career, which was a knockout loss to Bruno Oliveira at Titan FC 55. I think that might have been one of his first chances to get into the UFC. He lost that fight, had to fight a few more times, then got into the UFC. And then, this is another one of these guys that only fought 4 times in the UFC. They're only, I guess, you sign one contract and you go 1-3 and they're like, all right, see you later. But I think he is a guy that, he's got great submission, good knockout power, and great submissions. And I think that is in the welterweight division key, because if you're, we've seen guys like Hamzat come in and just ragdoll people because they are good at one thing. Meerschaert, grappler, you look at Jorge Masvidal, striker. You take him down and it's over with. Kevin Holland, I know he's just now fighting in welterweight, but he used to fight middleweight. But, you take him down and it's over with. I mean, these guys that are well-versed, good strikers and good grapplers, I think should have a place in the UFC. But I do like him in this fight against Curtis Melander. Melander's 18-8. He went 3-2 in the UFC and then got released. He went 1-1 in Bellator after that, and then joined the PFL in 2021, where he lost both of his fights there against Rory McDonald and Magomed Kirmov. This will be his first fight since those two PFL losses. He took a boxing match after that against Johnny Masirio in February. He won that via knockout. He's got 12 decision wins and 6 wins by knockout. He's never been knocked out, but he's been submitted in 5 out of 8 of his losses. And I see that's where I say I'm leaning towards Gooden, because Gooden, like I said, has got great grappling, really, really tight chokes if he could sink those in there. And if Curtis Melander, most of his losses are coming by submission, that's where I'm going to lean to any day of the week. This one, I think this is a really big, and this wasn't even close to the main card, I don't think, unless they're going to change it up when it gets closer to fight night. But I thought, I was looking at the rest of the fights on here, and, there's a couple fights on here where I could have previewed, but I think this one, we're going to see somebody that is going to be special in the near future. And I'm telling you now, I know a lot of people don't watch the videos, but if anybody is watching and they hear me say this, and when it happens, I'm going to clip this and I'm going to post it. But John Sweeney is going to be big one day. This kid is 9-3 with 4 wins by knockout and 3 wins by submission. He's ranked the #1 bantamweight in Georgia, the #2 bantamweight in South Carolina, and the number 26 bantamweight in the United States. He trains at Upstate Kickboxing with Stephen Thompson. He's got amazing striking. He's 26 years old, and he's currently on a 3-fight winning streak right now with wins over Calvin Harborough, Dre Miley, which that was a big one because Dre Miley is a fighter, man. He is a really, really good striker, and Sweeney was able to put him on his ass. And then Leonardo Morales, also, which is another big win for John Sweeney. He's going up against 32-year-old Cole Smith, former UFC guy Cole Smith, who is 7-2, 3 wins by submission, 2 wins by knockout. Never been finished in his professional career, but he is 1-2. He went 1-2 in the UFC, and then this will be his first fight since the UFC release. So big fight for John Sweeney, who, has fought guys on the regional scene, has got big wins on the regional scene, but never kind of got that pass. He lost to Cody Durden, so he never got the fight where it was like, this fight is going to get you. If you win this fight, they're going to be staring at you. They're going to be looking at you. He lost that fight. So now 3-fight winning streak. He's going up against a guy like Cole Smith, who just got released from the UFC. 32 years old, so still could be considered in his prime. This is a really big fight for John Sweeney. Cole Smith lost both of his most recent fights by decision in the UFC, Miles Johns and Hunter Azure. And then his biggest wins of his career were against Tyler Wilson, who was 5-1, and then Mitch Gagnon, who was 12-4. That fight happened in the UFC. John Sweeney has never fought a guy like this. He fought Cody Durden before he got into the UFC. He fought all these guys that he's won against. And, if they got into Bellator, if they got into the UFC, if they got into PFL, it was all beforehand. Now, this is Cole Smith after he fought in the UFC, after he's fought guys like Miles Johns and Hunter Azure. This is really big for John Sweeney. I'm picking John Sweeney. My guys, I want to give a big shout out. And I like John Dodson too, so I'll give a shout out to John Dodson as well. But I want to give big shout outs on this video to John Sweeney, Jared Gooden, Curtis Melander, and John Howard. I wish the best for all these guys. Jared Gooden a little bit more than Curtis Melander. Sorry, bud. But this XMMA 4 is going to be iconic. On the rest of the card is amazing as well. Louis Sinakis taking on Takiti Matsuda. Kyle Bonachek versus Carlton Menace. That's another 2 guys that used to be in the UFC. Kyron Bowen versus Sasha Palanikov. Palanikov, I think, coming from Bellator. Kyron Bowen's a relatively new guy. Andrew Garrette versus Justin Meade. Josh Harvey going up against Eddie Edwards. And then Weston Wilson taking on Tyreek Meldo, I think. D-E-A-U-X is Doe, I think. Melvo. V-E-A-U-X. Melvo. Whatever. Either way how you pronounce it, XMMA 4 is going to be jumping. If you're in Louisiana, I would 100% say go get tickets and go check it out. If you're not, I'm sure go to their website. They got plenty of ways where you could stream it. I'm going to take one look at the UFC event coming up because I think it's a pay-per-view. April 9th, pay-per-view. Yes, 2 title fights. Alexander Volkanovski going up against Chan Sung Jung, and then Aljamain Sterling versus Peter Yan. Interestingly enough, they're calling Peter Yan an interim title holder, even though he, by disqualification, is not a champion at all anymore. He didn't fight since. Did he fight since then? I don't think he fought since then. Yes, he did. He beat Corey Sandhagen. So my bad. Fucking erase it from the record. I was wrong. He is the interim title holder. Hamzat Chimaev versus Gilbert Burns is going to be a great test for Chimaev to see if he is the real deal or not. Alexei Oleinik, Ilir Latifi got moved to this card. Duriskios Duplessis was supposed to be fighting Alexander Hernandez. He got taken up on the card to fight Kelvin Gastelum because what was the motherfucker's name? It's in here. I'll find it. It's in here. I just seen it. Nasruddin Amanov. Nasruddin Amanov fell out of the card. So Duplessis steps up, fights Gastelum. Anthony Hernandez gets a replacement in Josh Freemed. So I think that's going to be a cakewalk for Anthony Hernandez. But a really, really good fight for Kevin Gastelum in there. Aspen Ladd, Raquel Pennington. I'm just going to surf through here. Mark Madsen versus Vince Pichel. Kay Hansen also on the card as well. That should be a great card. Come back next Tuesday. We'll be previewing that. Until then, stay barbecued. You guys know what the fuck it is. Go check out my boy Swift Fox on Twitch. We doing this thing, son.